going to be a bumpy night.
What's going on, everybody? This is the Laugh Bunker podcast. Thank you guys all for joining us. My name is Josh. I'm Paul. Great to see you, man. It is March 1st.
March 1st,
Yeah.
yes.
And it is a nice sunny afternoon here in California.
The weather has just been killer lately. It's my perfect time of the year. I love the warm days.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that because of working at nights, I've been spending more time in the sun.
Mm-hmm.
It's making me feel somewhat, there's definitely something. But yeah, and it's, considering the rest of the country is, suffering.
Yeah. Especially Texas,
nice.
Down people down there.
Oh, yeah. A friend of mine sent me a picture. A friend of mine that I used to, he's from Fontana, and he moved down to Texas. I think it's Longview. And he sent me a picture, and he was shoveling 8 inches of snow.
Mm.
And that's really was a horrible thing. I growing up in Michigan, of course, with winters, I never remember anything being closed down or anything like that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a horrible situation. And some people, did you see the bills they were getting paid?
Yeah.
$17,000 because the company had to pay more, so they just transferred the cost.
Yeah, and there's this big class action lawsuit. It's a big mess over there. It's I haven't really looked too deep into it into necessarily kind of what happened. I don't know if it's just the system's not built for this kind of weather, and I don't know. It's just it's funny because you think of like all the people that left California and migrated over to Texas, and then they just they're covered in snow.
You ever go to Texas?
I've been just once in my life. Yeah, I have an uncle that lives in Houston.
Okay.
I went probably early 2000s. I'll say 2001. I went for WrestleMania, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
So what year?
I think it was around 2001, 2000. Mm-hmm.
It's
Stone Cold and The Rock were the main event.
Well, I think now that we're talking wrestling in Texas, I was in Texas in 1985.
Okay.
Wait, 84? No, 85.
Yeah.
And we drove motorcycles.
Okay.
From outside of, long story as usual.
Like Harley,
outside of,
like Harleys and all that. Did you own one?
No. 650 Yamaha.
Okay.
All the way.
Nice.
No, it sucked. I couldn't even walk when I got there. In fact, I went with this guy, and there's a story up to this gentleman, and now he had a Harley, but he had not a real Harley.
Uh-huh.
Okay, there's a few years when AMF, which was a sports company, bought Harley.
Yeah. And
he had a Sportster, and it was that weird kind of bluish. And I think, yes, it's a Harley, but I think some people would think different of those years. So he had a little Sportster, and I had I was on, it wasn't even mine, it was his. Okay. And it was a Yamaha 650 yellow.
Is that because the seats are like maybe thinner?
There is
not
no
as comfortable?
seats. This is 1980, and who knows how old it was. Yeah. And the truth is, I had only ridden a motorcycle a few times in my life.
That's gutsy.
Oh no! The first turn I went down.
Oh really?
I didn't get hurt. You mean one thing about motorcycles? You have to go opposite of what your brain thinks when you turn. When it comes into now, we had mini bikes and small dirt bikes that my friends had that we played with.
Yeah,
growing up, but nothing on that. So we went down there, and this was in 85.
Yeah.
And it was just a totally different scene. It's an actual country when you go down there.
Where did you go? Where did you go?
Dallas.
Dallas? Okay. Never been to Dallas. Just Houston and out.
In fact, I worked in Dallas delivering art and antiques.
Okay.
In this rich area. And Turtle Creek area. And we got huge tips. And it was for and one of the companies, Lloyd and Paxson, it was like really old and very expensive stuff, and it was very interesting.
How'd you get hooked up with that job?
You know what? We went down there in 85, and first we didn't know what we were doing. We just went for it. So we stayed in a bus station for a couple days.
Okay.
Just kind of catching some Z's. And then right away there was the big work boom. So we started painting.
Uh-huh.
And like painting like 10, 12 hours a day. And then
did you just ask anybody?
No, there were signs on the roads, man. The work boom was when we were on the highway, there was signs for work at the exits outside of like Waco heading down into Dallas area. Now I lived out more in Irving, which is by the old stadium.
Okay.
It was on Pioneer Avenue, in fact, I think. But yeah, so I did that before moving to Chicago.
Yeah.
We went down there, and it was just crazy. It was just a crazy time. He wasn't able to come back.
Okay.
He was detained because he was from out of state.
Yeah.
So anyway, I took I left his motorcycle there.
Yeah.
And I took a bus back home.
Uh-huh.
And then 2 days later, I was working for some masons, and then I moved to Chicago at the end of the summer. But anyway, yeah, so that was kind of an interesting thing. But Texas, and I had a roommate from Texas.
Mm.
I had two roommates in college at the Bible college. One was from Texas, and I went there for Thanksgiving one time. And then I had another friend from Alabama, and he had a poster of Bear Bryant, the famous college football coach, on his wall. I think he prayed to it. That would be considered an idol in the Bible if you were going to go biblical, and especially in Bible college. That's why we didn't put up pictures of Arnold. Not just because of idols that people would think weird if you had pictures of guys in their panties on the wall. It wasn't as accepted. Arnold hadn't, broken out yet, so to speak. And so
Houston was cool. I didn't really go into the city too much.
How far is that from the ocean? It's by the ocean, the Gulf, right?
I think so. I don't even remember. It's so long ago.
Okay, so you went. Is that where you went for the wrestling?
Yeah, I went for the big WrestleMania.
And who was in it? You said The Rock?
Yeah, I think The Rock and the Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yeah, were the main event. And a lot of my friend, who's also a big wrestling fan and kind of still is to this day, I kind of stopped watching at a high school. You know what? This stopped me from watching wrestling a lot because all my favorite guys were dying. like that mid 2000s, 2005 to 2010, like so many people were just croaking and just dying. Even young guys.
Jesse Sandez, the guy I worked with at where we worked. This guy knew everything about everything. Yeah. I mean, really, to work with him was like a treat because he could talk about war. He could talk about movies, sports, everything. And he said to me one time that someone should really do a documentary because this period of wrestlers from the 85 to 2000, so many of them in these massive events have died. I mean, I think the Ultimate Warrior, didn't he receive a reward and then die within a couple days, right?
Yeah. I mean, he got inducted into their Hall of Fame. Okay. And then died like less than a year later. Yeah. And he looked in relatively decent shape. No, but you had a lot of guys that were younger. They were probably in their late 30s to early 40s dying. Some of them more notoriously like a Chris Benoit who does like a murder-suicide. That was...
Well, but if you go back to the brothers from Texas, I can't think of their names right now. I know who you're talking about. My brain is Carrie. It was the older brother.
Yeah, the Van. Oh my God, they all look like the Ultimate Warrior, basically.
Yeah, because
without makeup. Yeah. Von Erichs, the Von Erichs.
Von Erichs. Yeah. Do you know who Paul Valentine is?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I always liked him because he just had like this big lumberjack.
He looked like a miniature Andre the Giant kind of
with with blonde hair, straight blonde hair, and
or a Barney Rubble on steroids.
yeah.
That's probably more of. But the reason I say that is one summer I lived in Kansas City, my junior year of college, and with my girlfriend, and I worked in her church and whatever. But I worked out at this Gold's Gym, and there were a couple wrestlers because there was kind of a big wrestling scene in Kansas City for a while.
Yeah.
And Paul Valentine, I saw him. I handed him one of the dumbbells, but he was doing incline flies with 100-pound dumbbells. So 100 pounds, 200 pounds, 100 pounds in each hand.
Yeah.
And, he wasn't a cut guy.
No, not at all.
But just really strong.
Just a big chest, big barrel of like a solid stomach area. Like not like gut, but he looked just solid all the way. Just
he was a barrel. He was
built like a bear. A hairless
he was
bear.
built like the old school wrestler.
Yeah. Actually,
before the trend, but obviously was on some juice to be able to handle this kind of weight. Yeah, because he wasn't a super massive dude.
No,
he wasn't like super tall, but he was wide.
Yeah,
but back then in the 80s, and we had discussed this earlier. Let me tell you what: you could go to your family doctor and get your script of Dianabol or whatever, and it was all pill form, and that's incredibly hard on the livers. In your system, because it has to break it down compared to injectables. And back in that era, when you look at these guys,
huge.
They're not just huge. Even football players linemen who weighed 320, who had the garden hose vein on their bicep, was just that. So I'm sure that life, that was like a rock star life. You weren't, and you're just taking beatings. So you're taking probably
250 days out of the year. You're probably taking beatings on your body, and that's why a lot of these guys die so early. They beef up. They're on I don't know how many steroids or painkillers.
Painkillers probably, especially in that.
Especially painkillers. They're on the road majority of the year, and they're fighting through. They're wrestling through injuries. And they're living a hard rock star kind of life, because especially the ones that get famous, those ones are just, you had alcohol and drugs on top of that.
Yeah, with girls and the party and the whole deal. And
have you seen Ric Flair's ESPN 30 for 30?
No.
Oh, you got to watch it. You'll love it. It's about all this.
Send me the link, because we'll watch it, and then we'll just send me the link on or a reminder on my email. I'll watch it, and then we'll discuss it next week.
Yeah.
It's interesting because even though I wasn't really, wrestling became known to me, obviously, because of Sylvester Stallone and Rocky III. Yeah. I mean, that's when we, everything. That's when everything started growing. Yeah. And did you see the movie The Wrestler?
Yeah. I love it.
Sad.
It's sad.
That scene. Now you've been to places, and I've
seen guys like that who come from come from the big time, and then they're wrestling in these regional, warehouse big,
like high school gyms,
and they were at one time the big time kind of guys, and then they're wrestling in front of local crowds.
It's interesting because as you get older, there's a relationship to what you feel. I worked in a grocery store, and I saw that movie, and I was working at the
because he's in the deli section,
and I was there. Yeah, and I remember the times it was really fun. I loved the bullshit with people, but there were some times where the people were so harsh, man.
Yeah,
and it's like it was just brutal. But the scene where their tables are lined up. And in the
autograph,
and there's like hardly anybody there, and they're putting their stuff, and it was just I haven't been
to many of those, but at these local shows, you will have a mini version of that where they'll have these guys, even some former big names, will have their merch and their autograph sections, and they're just waiting. Well,
the steroids were a big part of that film too.
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah.
It killed him. That's what killed him. Remember, he had the heart attack when he jumped in, supposedly, right?
Yeah. And there was the one guy that was the supplier, a big beefy guy. I think he a bodybuilder, but the way he was saying his lines and the way he was selling the stuff to Mickey Rourke, that guy does it for like a living. They got a guy that knew what they're.
It was just like, it's like the scene, and I can't think of the movie when the guy wants to, the guy who sells the guns to Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver. He opens up the case, and it's like we're selling shingles.
Yeah,
down at Home Depot. Yeah, we got this. Do you have that? You'll need this.
Yeah, that's a good wrestling. Probably one of the best wrestling movies. Best documentaries, probably Beyond the Mat. That's a great one from the early 2000s. And then there's also good comedy with David Arquette that I think it was Ready to Rumble. That was a great one too. That was a really fun one. That was a comedy one. But ESPN 30 for 30 got some great ones on there.
Okay. Please send me that link. Ric Flair, I'm familiar with that name. I remember going, the whole Arnold and the bodybuilding scene kind of in the 80s was wrapped around this wrestling.
Go hand in hand, yeah.
Totally. And a lot of the gyms and because of the supplements and that whole era. Yeah. That's probably the last time I wore a tank top, to be honest with you. Because that's what you did. Now I realize how ridiculous it looks. So
speaking of wrestling, there's a new series, a third season coming out. It's called Dark Side of the Ring. And it's on. I think it's through Vice. Vice channel.
Yes.
So they've put out 2 seasons already, and do these mini kind of 30 for 30 docs on aspects of the wrestling, maybe a certain wrestling figure, maybe a relationship. They did one on Chris Benoit and they did a 2-parter on him. They did the death of Owen Hart. They did one episode on him, or 2-parter on him. They usually do 2-parters. It's a great series because they deep dive into like the backstory. They show you kind of the stuff that obviously these promotions won't tell you. They have family members and people that knew other wrestlers that knew them, and they tell you like kind of like the darker stories of the business. It's really good. The new season's coming out soon, so I'm really excited for that one. They have some really, really good ones on there.
Yeah, it's an interesting. It was so huge. I mean, we all knew who Vic McMahon was in the whole deal.
He's still doing his thing.
We went and saw, of course, the movie with Roddy Piper.
Yeah, They Live.
They Live, and he goes, I'm here to kick ass and something, and I'm all
chew bubble
whatever. Chewing bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum. Yeah. So, I mean, it's very interesting. One
of the first wrestlers I met in person, I think, was Yokozuna. You remember Yokozuna?
Yeah. Well, do I know anything about him? I know the name, and I may see a picture, but I could not pick out everything.
Sumo-looking guy, but I think he was Hawaiian. Actually, a cousin of The Rock. A lot of these guys are related. Well, a lot of the Samoan or Hawaiian wrestlers were kind of cousins. They all came up.
And I'm going to tell you what, the Samoan people are massive. The men, I knew a couple guys at the gym.
Yeah.
These were your 500-pound plus benchers, the 700-pound squatters. Yeah. Just massive
calves.
Oh, just
like not defined.
It's like their calf is bigger than my waist, which makes me pissed off.
Yeah,
So it's all a jealousy thing more.
When I met Yokozuna, I was smaller than the kitchen table, and then I think it was in Long Beach that I met him, and I went up to him, and I still have the signature. It said Yokozuna, and it says 93 champion, 93 champ. So
which champ of what?
He had the heavyweight title, I think, in 93.
In what? WWE or
WWE? Yeah.
What was the other one? Wasn't there another?
There was WCW, and you had, I think, before WWE or F, there was several regional things, NWA and all those other things. But yeah, WWE now, which is known as WWE, and WCW were the 2 big promotions from like the 90s to the 2000s. And
what do you think of The Rock?
I think, I like The Rock.
Shotgun question.
No, I like The Rock
because there's so much dynamics.
Yeah.
But
I always thought he was one of the more entertaining guys, athletic, not necessarily as far as his wrestling goes. Wasn't the most technical person, but really sold it and super athletic and entertaining. As far as acting wise and entertainment, I mean, I was a fan of his before he got into the movies and did The Mummy. To reach the level he's at right now is just, I thought he was going to succeed out of anybody really, but he probably went above and beyond that. I think now it's a little bit too much of him. I think he's basically in everything and plays like the same guy almost in everything, and literally wears almost the same shirt and everything. I mean, if you look at that movie Rampage, and then you look at Jumanji, and then you look at another movie, I think it was Skyscraper or whatever. They all came out like in the same like year. He's basically wearing the same outfit.
Well, it saves money. I mean, that's in some ways, the costume designers are just really, they created the brand of the khaki shirt, ripped and sweaty.
So, I mean, it's hard not to like the guy, but I do think there's a lot of him and maybe too much of him.
Oversaturation
a little bit. It's getting to that point.
Kind of like Will Ferrell from a few years ago.
Kind of, yeah, because Will Ferrell kind of reached that point too, where there's a lot of him. But I think even more so than Will Ferrell. I think because obviously on a bigger scale too.
Well, because you've got the fitness level that, there's when certain actors have an athleticism. Yeah. And his background, of course, he played for University of Miami, right?
Miami, yeah.
Yeah, which is one of the pillars.
Yeah.
Probably would have been drafted in the pros without the injury and the whole deal. Yeah. I like him 100%. I've never heard a negative thing about him.
Same.
Yeah. He seems like a cool guy. Seems like a guy I want to hang out with. And because of my, background of fitness and working out, he gets the respect of that. He always is in shape. He's good with using steroids for many roles. I mean, he really has the ability. And the truth is, more importantly, he's cool to his fans. Yeah. And he entertains, and he's what Hollywood is a plus. So I don't know his wrestling thing. What was it? Can I smell? What is it?
Okay. Can you smell what the Rock is cooking?
Yeah.
Even his music song when he came out was that him yelling, "Can you smell what the Rock is cooking?" And then his music, it's a very iconic kind of like theme song.
Who's to blame a person? Yeah. I mean, he was in, look where he was, high school, his career may be over, and the adaptation, create this character. And really, this is just acting. He created a whole character and persona. He took it to the movies. He's a nice guy. Yeah. It's what America's about. I'm happy for him. And the truth is, he seems like a guy who, you're right. He does need to step back a little bit. Yeah. Oversaturation, it takes away from the mystique and us wanting to see him. Exactly. If that makes sense. Yeah. And there's a lot of his movies I do not see, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they're not really for me, or I'm not really, even the ones he did, like when he came into the Fast and the Furious franchise, he was kind of just a guest, and he completely took over that franchise and even did a whole spin-off series. Wow. Against the wishes of the more established actors in that franchise. But
but because we always talk about the actors and the movie stars. Yeah. Some people walk in the room, they fill the room, and it is the way it is. I mean,
he's basically the highest paid male actor, I think, in Hollywood, right? Or actor in Hollywood at this moment.
I wouldn't know.
I'm pretty sure he is. I think he is.
I'm happy for him. If he needs a butler. I can cut the law. I'm pretty good, but I'm expensive. But I'm looking for a job, and it's interesting. The wrestling, it has been part of my life, and only in that the checking. Well, the truth is, now that I think about, all those guys were in muscle and fitness that we would go through in the 80s and 90s more, and so really the connection. I mean, they all probably were part of gyms. They were all
Yeah.
selling supplements. I'm sure there were supplement sales and all this proteins during this time. So yeah, it's tied in hand to hand, really.
Yeah. And
But
I was big into it. I was big into it up until that early 2000s, and I went to almost every event that was out here. Traveled to one in San Jose.
Did they have so like with the bodybuilding, they have like the show where you buy stuff and walk through and meet the people and autographs, right?
Mm-hmm. They would do these fan events, late 90s, early 2000s, where they would do these fan events, and you would meet a ton of guys and get a lot of signatures. I think I still have a lot of. I should still have a lot of them.
Okay, so question for you. If we talk basketball, you can never have a conversation without the greatest being Michael Jordan, Babe Ruth, Tom Brady's, Gretzky, whatever, Brando, Meryl Streep. Question: in wrestling, not considered maybe the most champion, but namesake, would you put Hulk Hogan in the top 5 that transformed the sport?
Yeah, I think in terms of technical athletic ability and all that, like, I wouldn't put him at the top of the list. But as far as
influence
and the physical ability and the just the presence, personality, yeah, he's got to be hands down. Probably him and The Rock are probably the 2 biggest stars of the sport, the industry, the sport. They have to be part number 1 and number 2. I think Rock's kind of surpassing him now with, him being such a success in Hollywood. But I would put those 2 number 1 and number 2. As far as one of my favorites and like in ring ability and all that, because when I watched it, I really appreciated the athleticism and the guys who were the more technical. They knew all the little catch moves and all that. It's choreographed, but they sold it really well. They knew every technical little grappling hold that you can even go. They weren't the biggest, loudest voice in the room. But one of my favorites is probably Bret Hart. Have you Bret him?
I know
Hart?
a name, couldn't pick them out. They all look the same for a while.
He had like the reflective kind of pink shades. He had the leather jacket. They wore kind of pink singlets. They had like the pink and black singlets. He had like the Hart Foundation. Owen Hart was his brother who died. He was coming down from the rafters on a stunt, and
really?
Cable broke and fell to the ring on a live pay-per-view. So that was
how many people were in the audience? A lot.
Packed, full house stadium. Wow. Yeah, and the show continued. The show continued. Yeah. Wow. They carried him out. Show continued. So they're the documentary.
You were there?
Oh no. This was like probably 98, 97. Okay. No, I wasn't there. I don't know what city it was in. No.
Oh, well, I've heard the name, but I didn't know about the brother's death. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, it's you can look at it as being it's just a soap opera. It's entertainment, but I always appreciated the athleticism. Like even some of the good matches that were just full on technical, like a Chris Benoit, who was probably one of my favorites, even though he's more controversial now because of what happened to him. Him and Kurt Angle, who was do you know who Kurt Angle is?
I know the names. I know all these names. I couldn't tell you a face or this, but they're all familiar. Yeah,
he was a freestyle Olympic wrestler, I think, gold medalist.
Okay,
came into the WWE, WWF late 90s, early 2000s, and him and Chris Benoit had a lot of really classic technical back and forth, tossing each other around, holds and scrambles, and just I always appreciated those type of like matches.
Well, I mean, the choreography.
Yeah.
I mean, people can look down and say, oh, well, it's not real. But really, it's on the level of a Broadway dancer. Yeah. Without this choreography, these guys would be so injured or dead. And it's kind of like skill that's unbelievable. Oh, no. It's the same thing.
Yeah. It's like if you saw like a high performing, like a ballet dance, and everybody was just like, I mean, on point physically and the abilities or like a Cirque du Soleil kind of thing where it just says, I mean, the athleticism and the technique and this and that. And then it's like that's how a lot of times I appreciated that.
Well, if you're dancing on Broadway, and especially if you were dancing back in the old school days of Bob Fosse and in that era, let me tell you what, those were athletes that were as great as anybody on the football field or the basketball court. I mean, the muscle control of a dancer, martial artist, or even the choreography of the wrestlers. Because you're right, man. You miss 1 second, that steel chair is on your head.
Yeah.
And it was many times.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of brains.
No,
NASA was not. I mean, the longer you went in wrestling, your chances of a scholarship was getting a lot limited at university.
Honestly, what got my attention out of wrestling too was the fact that mixed martial arts, MMA, a lot of fighting, combat sports outside of boxing were starting to come on TV a lot. You know, and
do you think that that's linked?
They still kind of go hand in hand. Especially when you have a guy like Brock Lesnar who comes over and has kind of some success, and you know, some other professional wrestlers who have they've had that collegiate wrestling background, where they're, you know, maybe an All-American, you know, NCAA kind of person, or they've competed in that kind of level, and then they come over. They have the ability to compete, and they just have to build around that. But nobody reached the level of Brock Lesnar. They do go hand in hand in a lot of ways. Even when I would go to like a Best Buy, they would always have the WWE DVDs and the UFC DVDs in the same section. A lot of times almost together, which kind of upset me because I'm like, it's not the same thing. You gotta separate, you know. But I don't know. That was more of a nerd thing to me, aspect of how I looked at it. But no, yeah, I think they go hand in hand. I was getting into the combat sports early 2000s, 2004, 2003. And, you know, I just started seeing that a lot more. And then once, you know, my wrestlers, all my favorite guys started dying, I was like, I jumped ship. I went full.
Well, someone should do a documentary about that, because it seems like that a lot have. And it would need to be something, a good documentary. But anyway, send me the Ric Flair, which you do recommend. Yeah. And
I'm gonna send you an article. Sports Illustrated did an article on what we were talking about in terms of the death of wrestlers. There's one article that I think was revolving around the Chris Benoit incident. It came out around that time in Sports Illustrated, and they even went back and looked at one of the major events. I think it was a WrestleMania 93 or WrestleMania 90. Somewhere. I think it was 93, SummerSlam maybe. And they had a list of some of the biggest names in the sport at that time. And when this article came out, could have been like maybe 2007, somewhere around there, 8. They pulled up that particular big event, and they went down the list, and basically out of like, I don't know how many wrestlers, maybe 25 to 30 wrestlers, maybe less than 10 of them were still alive from like 93 till early 2000s. It was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Make no mistake. I was in the gyms in the 90s, so I understand totally how it was. And it's interesting because we talk about the first, I mean, we saw the martial art films, and I think what really kind of, the Van Damme film, what was it?
Like Bloodsport?
Bloodsport. That was really kind of, I mean, martial arts were kind of popular when I was young because of Bruce Lee, and we would all see the Kung Fu movies, and then the TV show, obviously, with David Carradine and everything. And people were going to the emergency room every other week with being kicked. I mean, we were kicking everybody. Yeah. But it was the Van Damme, and then there was the kickboxing, the U.S. kickboxing tours, and even Sean Penn's, Chris Penn was involved in it. And then it just, but that seemed to be kind of like for us or my generation, that's what really got back in. And then we had the Bruce Lee story, which was a phenomenal film, I thought.
Yeah. Did you like that one? I love that movie.
Yeah, the early one. And the reason I love the girl too, his wife. She's a great actress. I can't think of her name offhand. My
I know
brain's
she's
dead.
married to Jim Carrey, and
yeah. She was great in it,
great.
I thought.
She was,
and I
really,
the truth is, it just everything we watch, whether it's the John Belushi or Jordan, this guy too. I mean, if you're not, you got to be so focused.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be your everything. And maybe if he didn't have the injury, he doesn't come back with a new style. We don't know, but he was a driven dude, man.
Yeah.
And that for us is what really first, but then blood sport. And now, I mean, we remember when UFC started, you know, and now would you say it's financially bigger than boxing?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways because
only because of cumulatively more fights and more advertising.
Yeah, more fights, more advertising. It's all housed in one company instead of like boxing where it's broken up into different promoters and, you know, maybe a handful of companies that work with certain promoters and not others. So boxing, it's you got the big names. You still always going to have the big names that come through and make a ton of money. But it's spread out. It's scattered, and some guys don't work with other guys because they're associated with this promotion or Top Rank, Golden Boy, whatever, you know, it may be. So I think as a whole, I think UFC fighters and the promotion probably make more money. Yeah, definitely, because it's all housed inside, and even the second best promotion probably. It's hard to I say so. More than like a Top Rank or a Golden Boy, I think so. Yeah.
Well, truth is, I hardly know anybody's name in boxing anymore, and there was a time when, man, we knew everybody.
There's some big names. I think it's a new crop of fighters that have come out. A lot of good guys. Yeah.
It just seems to have become diluted.
Yeah, that's really the problem.
With all the different, you know, when I grew up, you know, when I was born, there was one division.
Yeah, there's a new division every 3 or 4 pounds.
And the greatest boxer of all time, Muhammad Ali, was on Friday nights.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then Saturdays were some of the great fights, and it wasn't until the pay-per-view. But it to me, I like it.
Yeah.
I like the discipline of it. I have a friend, in fact, he retired. He went from Chicago Police Department into firefighting, and now he's done. And he trained he's in his 60s and still training, and he loves the grappling part of MMA.
Okay. Yeah.
And even though his background he would have went to the Olympics.
Yeah.
But we pulled out in the 80s. He was a welterweight boxer.
Okay.
And he signed a pro contract, but he kept breaking the metacarpals. He had some condition, and they just never got better. So then he went to college, and he became a computer tech guy.
Yeah.
And I met him, and he was my Golden Gloves coach.
Okay.
Or boxing coach during that era, or whatever. And we became friends. And he was he was a very phenomenal guy.
Yeah.
But I don't know why I told you about him.
Well, no, I think with the grappling aspect, a lot of
he likes the grappling.
Yeah, because it's easier on the body in a lot lot of ways, I think, because a lot of you're not getting punched in the head. You don't have to like you're using your body, your movements, you're rolling with the other guy, you're kind of reacting.
Well, and maybe with his age, he moved into it, because I know that, you know, for him to hit the bags and whatever.
Yeah.
And he was pretty good. Every once in a while he would get in the ring.
Yeah.
And, you know, for a few seconds and whatever. And he was very quick.
Yeah.
But the boxers in the old days, they were so much limited. I imagine living in the time of Tommy Hearns and you know, and all these people, and you know, just the amount their celebrities were so huge. Now I got to know more boxing when I worked at our hotel, believe it or not, because then
a lot of guys
started
came through.
Getting inundated with, and the heavyweight champ guy was there all the time. And so Fury. And so because of that, I started learning, and it was fascinating.
A lot of the MMA guys came through too.
Yeah. And the entourages.
Yeah.
That were, I mean, these guys are so, I guess that was a concept that I never figured, how much these people pay to have people hang out with them.
A lot of the wrestling guys came through too. Back to wrestling, a lot of them came through.
Really?
I've heard Ric Flair would attend, hit the bar a couple of times. I met Shawn Michaels. You remember Shawn Michaels?
Mm-mm.
I'll send you a picture. He's the the nature.
My only connection, not that was wrestlers, was the one dude. Don't say his name, but he's a big time star. But anyway, we had to clear out his cards went under, so we had to clear out all his things. And I was in fear. And I don't know who told me. Said, "We need you to check the room." I said, I'm not open these doors." Well, like, what happens if he's on drugs or who knows what's going on? I mean, this guy. These are the crushers.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these guys would do local. There's a place over here where we live. They would do their signings there. Frankincense. Have you heard of it?
Mm-mm.
Big warehouse now. It's a big warehouse. They took over a Costco. It's a big warehouse. Collectibles, sports cards, trading cards. They do a lot of autograph signings there. Yeah, they're open. They're still open. Almost.
Do you go there?
Yeah, I haven't been there in a few months, but yeah.
No, but I sometime, like on my longer weekend, I'd be interested to meet you there sometime and go check it out, because there was one in Chicago like that.
Oh, you'll love this place. Yeah, you'll love it. I don't know how it is
now. Baseball. I sold some of my baseball cards at one of these things.
They have sections like that. There's a big section of just sports memorabilia and cards. You have like action figures. You have like the anime stuff. You have a big autograph section.
Where's it at?
It's over City of Industry.
Okay.
Yeah, but a lot of the wrestlers that came through our hotel would do their autographs there, and I think because it was close to the airport, I don't know. That promoter put a lot of them through our hotel, and I got to meet a lot of them. And yeah, my favorite one that I met, and one of the nicest guys, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. You know who he is? I
know the name, but I don't know
he had like, the black and gold outfit. He had his own belt made. It was just the dollar signs. Big guy, great in-ring performer. Just not physically like a shredded, but like a Greg Valentine, just a solid big guy. You know what I mean? Just a big personality.
Well, it's what's nice. You were at the desk, but because of my job there was different than my job where I'm at now. But over there, everything went through us. I had to know everything, the keys. So yeah, it's funny. I didn't think about the wrestlers, but I think, and then I forgot about like the Hollywood show when you first got there, stuff was just cranked in that Hollywood show. So the one
those are fun times. Those are fun days. I
love those kind of, and I would always work the parking.
Yeah.
In fact,
a lot of people hated when the Hollywood show came or any of these other like celebrity ones. I loved it. I was like, oh man, I wonder who I was going to meet.
No, I purposely stood outside from 5 a.m. and I would just bullshit with all the old stars and whatever, and just different people. And even my favorite was the warden from Shawshank.
Yeah. That guy's, he's still.
No, he was so freaked. He came in and his voice. It was funny because I didn't really see him and I heard the voice and I knew who. So I looked at him and he said, "Oh, is this where the celebrity parking is?" And I said, "Well, that depends." And he goes, "On what?" I said, "If you're being obtuse or not." And then he laughed and I said, "Can you say it to me?" So then he said the line, and then Steve.
Yeah.
Went up to him and bought some stuff from him and got pictures and said, "Can you say it?" And then the guy said to Steve, said, "What's with you people?" And Steve said, "Don't you realize that like you're watched more than anybody in this freaking room because Shawshank Redemption's on 50 times a day in the world?"
Yeah.
Since the day it started, whatever. But anyway, that being said, there were some good times there.
Yeah.
With the groups. I like the big shows.
Yeah, the big shows are fun. Yeah, especially those.
And the music. Shows. The only one that sucked was I don't want to say the name.
Yeah, I know which
dancing one.
Yeah. That was a lot of work.
I just get tired of seeing people have sex. And I know that sounds weird.
Yeah.
I heard there's this huge industry about this, which seems like. But more and more, I could see where it could be appealing to certain people. Yeah. But just the drunkenness and the craziness. And you know what's so funny? I never had to. I was always there from 2 to 10.
Yeah.
So what was great is everybody's hungover. in the morning. So
Yeah.
these people aren't up on Saturday morning. They are. If they're up, they've been up since Thursday night.
Mhm.
So they're in a corner. So by the time the bomb started going,
Yeah.
it was you people overnight that,
Yeah.
you know, the noise complaints and the, like one time Boris said, do you want to work the pool? I said, no, I'm not going to stand at the pool with girls without clothes. Plus, you know, I don't want to get water in my suit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
water, it's just going to look bad. So
I think
anyway,
the problem with the event too is that it went till literally like 3 or 4 in the morning. So that it wasn't just like, oh, it's over at 1 o'clock and everybody goes home and then you could kind of like deal with some partiers afterwards.
oh no,
like,
I
the entire
had
event
to
went to
clean
like 4 in the
people
morning.
out
Yeah.
at 6 in the morning when I came in.
Yeah, because the
So
event
I'm
had
familiar with that.
was just over. So, it got easier and to handle as
It changed.
It changed
Because
we adapted. We adapted basically to it.
well, our salespeople put stipulations
That too. Yeah.
because at first there wasn't any.
Yeah.
And at that time, before the Marriott jumped on board, and we'll say that word, the hotel was more convention friendly, and we worked. I mean, everybody, football. Team. It was a happening place.
Yeah.
And it was fun, and they were crazy. I mean, remember Nike and everybody was there. LeBron,
Everybody was there, yeah.
Everybody came in. It was such a killer time. And most of these groups, my favorite group though was always the Irish step dancers.
Yeah, yeah.
Not just because of being Irish from my mom's side, but because when the Catholic moms are in the house. Can you imagine if we would have ran 2 programs, that dance one we talked about at night and then the Irish moms in the morning?
Yeah.
There would have been no problems.
What about the bodybuilder? What about the bodybuilder group? I'm sure that was always interesting.
Yeah, I got a great picture with one of the guys. Yeah, it is interesting.
This is fun, the variety, and because you're like me, we have a lot of interests into like different things, like bodybuilding, the Hollywood show, the boxing, the MMA guys, the pro wrestling guys. We would know a lot of these kind of like at least aware of them.
Oh, it was I mean, we worked the show, and there was a couple times where first of all, their security, they had their own security.
Yeah.
And these guys were monster dudes. So all we did was facilitate with their keys, hi, hello, whatever, help with their parking, open doors. But really, they run a tight ship. And the truth is, man, there was some ladies there that I was jealous. I was totally jealous. Can you put clothes on? Because I'll never be in that kind of shape.
Yeah.
But the truth is, everybody was cool. And it's cool. From lifting at Gold's Gym Venice and going back to Arnold and the whole deal, I've been to some big shows.
Yeah.
And it's been I liked it. I loved the variety. Yeah. Maybe not the self-help were the lowest level of
the self-help was probably they were
there was a few strange ones too.
Strange ones. You get the strange ones and the self-help ones. Yeah.
Almost like the spiritual self-help within the realm of
I want to say cultiness, but they're following. They have they have their guidelines.
Yeah, it's guru oriented.
It's guru oriented. It's it's Deepak Chopra type of like on a lesser level.
And the problem I was having is when I would be doing my runs, people would start following me, and I said, "I'm not the guru, okay? Yeah. I can't help you."
Yeah, they'll leave their self-help books for you to read.
Hey, I lost my self-help. Shouldn't that be the number 1 page item? Don't lose this. Yeah. You're fucked.
or the financial advisors, like the ones that you follow this program and you'll have big success and make a ton of money, and everybody puts thousands of dollars just to stay there for the weekend. And
hey, you know what though?
I'm
going to say this one thing, and no matter what, a couple people walk away from there and they walk away with a better life. So you know what? If it works for you,
it actually is true.
The truth is, and that these groups, they were there was a couple times when there were competing groups where
Yeah.
there was some animosity or whatever. But the truth is, in my experience, every one of those people who ran those groups, everybody who was the head person and their security was always up and kind and cool. And the people, when people want to improve themselves, they're cool people.
They're cool people.
And
for the
so
most part,
truth is, you know, I like maybe more of the celebrity of the other ones, but these groups too were really all kind. You know what? Do you remember we had one time was Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam
Oh, okay.
was at the hotel.
Uh-huh.
So I was there Saturday morning and we had to personally take him up, right?
Oh, okay.
So I like to fuck with people. It's just, I mean, I like to have fun.
Yeah.
It's just what I do. So I got in the elevator and I'm not talking about this. The guy, Farrakhan, was in the corner.
Yeah.
And I mean, the wall. If these guys should just hire themselves out to the NFL, because we're talking about Super Bowl every weekend. You're talking about just walking down the field. Everybody gets out of the way.
Yeah.
So I turned the elevator and I turned to Mr. Farrakhan
Uh-huh.
into the corner, and the wall came up. And I said, Mr. Farrakhan, I just want to say that I'm from Chicago, and this is an ultimate privilege for me to meet you, and thank you for coming to the hotel. And he shook my hand.
Okay,
He
cool.
shook my hand. But everybody, you know, the tension was whatever. But then, because you're like, what's this guy going to say?
Yeah.
So anyway, in that group, there was no shenanigans.
Yeah.
I think everybody in the whole hotel I don't think there was alcohol served that weekend. I'm talking about they ran the show and it was a great group.
Yeah.
And the only other time I got to say my Reverend Sharpton story. So he was in the valet, right?
Uh-huh.
And he was over by the corner where that one bench is, where you would walk into the side, the far exit. So this dude's suit must have been, I don't make that kind of money. Okay. I was very jealous because, you know, I like to wear a suit, and he was smoking this cigar that was, I don't know, worth whatever. And I came up to him and I started walking. I said, I got something to say to you. And you know, look, he has this big bodyguard dude, this big black guy stood upright and kind of built like the comedian,
like Patrice O'neill,
same build. And Reverend Sharpton's eyes got real big. I said, I want to say I'm a huge fan. And I shook his hand. Thanks for coming to the hotel. And the guard guy laughed. Just laughed and came up to me later in the lobby and said, man, he goes, I don't know what to say. I've never seen him look like that. So anyway, and the truth is, in the valet area, I always hung there because people, Adam Sandler, different people, and they just wanted the bullshit and get out.
Yeah.
So it was a quick joke. I mean, I hung out with Maxine Waters one time, joking. I'm just saying, all these people, I love how people would come in and out.
Yeah.
I don't have that.
You don't have that anymore.
And I have to say that we were there at a great peak moment. You came at the end of the peak. I was there. I left and came back.
Yeah. And
so I was there on two different worlds, because when I came back when there had been acquired and went over.
Yeah. My time was 2016 to half of 2020. Yeah.
So early, and I came down to 213.
Okay.
And up.
Yeah.
So I left for a while to I had to film the scene for the wrestler at the deli. But I wasn't punching the machine. I was punching the people on the other side of the counter. In love, though. Yeah. Because, you know, in the Bible, it says lay hands on the face and neck. This is a biblical thing. And it also says don't throw your pearls amongst the swine. No significance to that either. But
we'll talk about pearls.
Bible lesson of the day.
With the pearls, let's move on to the Golden Globes.
Just on a side note, my wife and I, we celebrated our 33rd wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
On Saturday. We had a nice time. We cooked, whatever, but it was just really cool. And yeah, so we got married in '88 in Chicago in February.
Nice.
And then we spent our honeymoon night at O'Hare and by the airport, and then we flew out the next day to Denver. Got picked up by the guy who did the artwork. Spike.
Yeah.
his parents, and they gave us their hippie Volkswagen van, kind of the hippie, and we stayed in Boulder, and we went and around, and it was just really a killer time. And it's been a long haul, but it's just, man, life goes fast. I mean, it's really been an interesting, and where we met, and who would have known we would have been out here.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So we had a nice time, and I love my wife, and she's awesome. And it's been quite the trip. I would not even be doing this podcast if it wasn't for her and her, just the theater and the whole deal. And I would, without the theater, I wouldn't went to film school. I just, and it's been an interesting trip. And
that's cool, man. I'm glad I had it for you guys.
Yeah, it was a good thing. How many years for you?
Married we're going on our second, but we've been with each other almost 10 years now. Almost.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I met my wife in 85.
Okay. Yeah. So, basically when I was born. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I wanted to get the right perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So that's been really good. And other than that, I just been before we go to the Golden Globes. What do you watch? You watching anything sticking out? Something that you really liked?
Yeah. Well, we can. Yeah.
And then we'll wrap up with the Golden Globes. I myself did not watch the show. I was working.
Yeah.
I did go through and watch some moments as I went. Now it's funny because, like, 33 years of marriage, I've watched probably 30 Oscar telecasts with my wife. My wife is a fan.
Yeah.
Of movies, of Hollywood, of celebrity, and I mean, we always watch the Golden Globes.
Same.
The SAGs, not as much, but always the Oscars. And that's what I'm waiting to come out, because once I get the list, I always see every movie every year.
Golden Globes, Emmys, and the Oscars are usually the big three that.
Well, Emmy being TV, of course, being and the SAG being more Oscar influenced. Now, there was a lot of controversy that there are no black members of the Golden Globes.
Okay.
And of the foreign press.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And there was a bunch of talk. Tina Fey and Amy Poehler said some things about it. And I don't know anything, but that was part of the controversy. I don't know. I didn't see the show. I don't see how it played out. I know that two things. I mean, obviously, then our girl, the Queen's Gambit, and Anna Taylor-Joy winning, and she looked spectacular.
She looked amazing. She looked like
she was wearing $1 million. I love this girl. She's so talented, so grateful. Gave a wonderful speech to the guy who wrote it, which I love, because without the creation, we don't need it. So I thought that was really good. But the one thing that really stood out for me, that excited me, was this the lady who won, Andra Day, who won Best Actress for the United States versus Billie Holiday.
Yeah. I think that was I want to say it's a shocker for people, because I haven't seen it. So maybe
she doesn't have much of a background.
She doesn't have much
filmography.
She's out of her group, the lesser known person for sure.
And okay, lesser known person, but to have to step into this iconic role that Diana Ross, maybe one of the most iconic women singers. What would you put her up there?
Yeah.
And to play that role. And I'm so anyway, I want to see that. And then I also want to see this Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I did not see these before. I think these are both going to be Oscar nominated. And this Chadwick Bronson, the guy's a phenomenal actor, a great loss. And I love Viola Davis. So those are going to be my two films that I see next, because I've heard the buzz. But this lady to win this award, I mean, we're talking about monumental. And I love the original.
Okay.
Did you see Lady Sing the Blues?
No.
it's worth watching. And the reason is, when we talk about our recommendations coming up, I did watch this Richard Pryor, A Mythologic, which is a documentary come out in 2013 about the comic. And it talks about Lady Sings the Blues. And they said his original role was so small, but he was taking over every scene.
Yeah.
That they just kept editing him into more and more of the movie.
Yeah.
But so to take an iconic role, now I just heard, by the way, they're going to remake Scarface.
I've been hearing talks of that. Is it Leo DiCaprio that's looking to fill the role still, or no?
It was just in a list of films that are going to be going into production. I did not read any specifics, but
I think he was taking control over it. And I don't know if it's a sequel, a remake, or a prequel. I don't know what it's.
Well, they better, if they do, they should not. I mean, Scarface with Al Pacino, one of the top 5 actors in the history of the world.
Yeah. What are we
going to do? Remake The Godfather?
Yeah, he had his little moment. I think I didn't see it, but some people thought he fell asleep during the intro because it had everybody on Zoom. And I think they were just on Zoom throughout the entire show because you never knew when, I guess, they were going to get. Most of the actors or people nominated had to kind of just be on Zoom at some point, if not the entire show.
Not Anna Taylor-Joy. She looked great, but
she looked great.
A lot of people look great, but
yeah,
no, it was so those 2 movies I'm excited. I'm really excited about. I'm gonna look into these. A lot of this stuff I really did not, to be honest with you, see, though I did see The Crown with my wife, and so that won tons of awards, and I was really happy. Now Rosamund Pike won.
She won, and I'm not surprised that they would give it to her because I thought her performance was fine, even though I thought the movie was like whatever.
No, it was it was a solid role. She did a great job.
I think she nailed it. Yeah. So I wasn't surprised by that.
No, I didn't. And a lot of these others, I can't tell you. I mean, The Crown. My wife loves the Schitt's Creek. Do you watch that?
No. A lot of people. That's a big hit show right now, though, in terms of comedy.
And that lady, and No Man Land won Best Picture.
Yeah. Did you end up seeing it or no?
No, I did not see it because we did. I'm going to tell you what.
Yeah.
We watched the first season of Rowan and Martin's Laughing, 5 episodes each night. And I'm going to it's going to go into my recommendation.
Okay.
And we'll talk about it later. But it is probably one of the more brilliant. When you hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
And we'll go into it later when we talk about recommendations. But No Man Land, yes, it's on my list. My wife said, no, we're not going to get Hulu till I finish Ray Donovan.
Okay.
So she's got, I think, 3 days before the 30 days up. And then we're jumping Hulu, and we will just, it's just, we just take it over. We just we storm it, we rush through, we steal everything, and then we move on. I think
Disney still has that deal where you get Hulu, ESPN Plus, and the Disney Plus app for like $12. I think you get all 3. It's like a three combo like a 3 bundle, 3 app bundle.
You know what my problem
maybe start looking into.
It's just too much to watch.
Yeah.
And really, I don't really watch anything from our podcast till Friday, because the limited time I have with working, I spend it writing and working, trying to finish this project. So I try not to watch. Usually Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I spend a lot of time.
For me, I watch something early in the week, and then I watch something maybe on the weekend, and then that's why when I think I sent you my recommendations for the last week. I threw The Patriot and Snatch in there because I just watched those movies kind of like back to back, and I was like, just throw these in there because I didn't have too much for last week, but I love those movies. I love revisiting those movies. I can watch those all the time.
You know what? And I will, after I see, the thing is, I'm going to be in an Oscar push. So I'm going to see these two other films right now because they are definitely. I have to see Nomadland. So there's 3 films that are definitely going to be in the Oscars.
And that director that won, she won best. I think it won best picture, and then she won best director, right?
Yes, it was Chloe Zhao.
Yeah, so she's attached to one of Marvel's upcoming movies. It's called The Eternals, and she is it's supposed to come out this year, but obviously with COVID and all that got pushed back till I think end of this year. Last year, I'm sorry, end of this year. A lot of she's talking about it as she's like it's such a departure from what Marvel's been doing that she's surprised that they let her do it. And there's a lot of buzz, at least in the that kind of scene, that it's going to be a interesting film that she's coming out with. And I know the property that she's doing. It's the Eternals. I have the comic books. I almost have every issue. It's more of an obscure group, but I'm curious to see how she's going to do, especially after watching Nomadland and knowing who she is and all that, and the projects she's worked on. It's going to be interesting to see what she does in this type of like world, So
well, like I said, my only connection to Nomadland is I did read the book.
Yeah,
and I did watch a video of the director, and there's a famous picture of Frances McDormand directing her.
Yeah,
in a booth at one of the locations. So yes, I am interested in I'm happy at one, to be honest with you, of all of them. It's the one I'm really pulling for because it really tells a story that maybe because I'm over 55, I'm connected to.
Yeah.
But I love her, and I love I call these info movies. Like example, remember the movie Rounders?
Yeah. Where they take you in a world that you wouldn't.
You're learning. So I love films like this over more than biography, to be honest with
you. Even like The Wrestler could be something like that, because if you're aware of
it was for me. It totally.
Yeah. See, I've seen that world, and I've been around that world. Yeah. That. Oh yeah, Devil Wears Prada. Yeah.
So that was
I do like those kind of movies. I do like those kind of movies, those info movies.
I think that if you're an artist who can draw, I can't think of a better job than the fashion industry to design clothing for women or men. I mean, I would pick more women just because such a statue, just a phenomenal. It's just.
Have you seen the Phantom Thread yet? Have you seen that movie?
No, I haven't seen that.
Check that out one too. That's another good one.
What's it on?
Amazon, I think.
Is it on Amazon?
I'm pretty sure I watched it on Amazon. Maybe not. Actually, no. I saw it on HBO.
Okay. HBO. Yeah, because I go through that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would agree. I've never been a big fashion person. I like seeing fashion. I like buying certain things for myself, but I've always been fascinated with the fashion industry and fashion world, and like I would love to go to Paris Fashion Week, and you know what I mean, or New York Fashion Week, or just to be in that world. I like that. I don't know. I've always been interested in that kind of like.
I mean, it's the moneymaker
around there. Yeah, but I don't know.
Bull.
Yeah. But it's like in Devil Wears Prada is kind of like the inside, a little bit of the inside view into it. I don't know. I've always been interested in that.
Well, it is because it's taken after the lady who runs everything.
Yeah.
So I like those kind of movies, to be honest with you. So anyway, going into one thing I did watch, and we talked about it, was the Richard Pryor documentary. Very fascinating. Are you familiar with his beginning days in the 50s and 60s?
Just what I've seen on certain documentaries, like the Comedy Store, like CNN's docuseries.
Well, he was branded as the next Bill Cosby.
which is funny because his style of comedy is obviously the complete opposite of.
And that was the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
And he had this revelatory moment. And someone who was very big into him and was friends with him was Bob Newhart, who's in this a lot. Yeah. Well, I mean, Bob Newhart was also conceptual humor, making up the phone calls and going, creating the characters and what was going on. A troubled dude, man.
Oh yeah.
But he finally got his Vegas stat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember where it was, but it was one of the big houses. And he's looking out in the audience, and Frank Sinatra's there, and Dean Martin. And he said he looked at Dean Martin and he thought, man, I'm just up here being a fool like you are. And then he went into his comedy, and he got fired. And he's had 2 or 3 times where, I mean, people thought there's no way you can survive.
Yeah.
I mean, when he did the crazy stunt at the special Hollywood Bowl, when they were raising money for gay people and for equality, and he was just did crazy stuff, and he would just keep coming back.
Yeah.
But I want to read this book. And I read a great article in the New York Times about this documentary. And the lady who also directed it, Marina Zenovich, she also did one on Robin Williams.
Now, can you find the Richard Pryor documentary? Where can you find that?
Showtime right now.
Showtime. Okay.
It's either Showtime or Amazon, because I have 2 of those, so I can't say. The Robin Williams I haven't seen yet, but it's called Come Inside My Mind.
Okay.
Which he was also conceptual. And it's really interesting because I read a lot about Paul Mooney yesterday.
Yeah.
And I read about this documentary, and I watched it a couple times. And it goes back to him talking about being on Diana Shore and really saying some crazy stuff. He had 7 wives.
7 wives. Wow.
And 2 he married twice.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's just a crazy, crazy story. But the person whose book I would like to read is Gene Wilder.
Yeah.
Because they had a very interesting relationship. Yeah, he did write one, and it was in the New York Times article. I can't. Yeah. But anyway, I want to read because he had a very interesting relationship with Richard Pryor because he was on set with all the movies.
Yeah.
And as soon as they said cut, Gene Wilder went home, and then Richard would be partying all night.
Partying, yeah.
Because he had his entourage and his, and anyway, very interesting documentary. Probably the best thing. But the best thing that I've been watching is this Rowan and Martin Laugh-In.
Okay. Where is that on?
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
And I'm going to highly recommend it because when you're, other than the 1968, I can't think of another year that would represent 2020.
Okay.
And when you see, and plus you're up against censors. Think about the censors on 3 networks in 1970, when really it's more of a Republican base running everything. Everything is controlled. And when you see the writing and what they say and what they do is so brilliant. Yeah. You can't believe, because remember we talked about last week about the cancel.
Yeah, because we're living in this kind of like a second wave of this censorship, but it's a different form of it. It's obviously it's a self-censorship kind of a culture. Yeah. I'm going to make a crazy statement here. Yeah.
But I think comedy is going to be taken over by the people we don't know. And I think I think that the big stars of pre-pandemic are not going to be the leaders because they are straddling a fence. So in other words, they have a persona before the pre-pandemic, which made them famous and who they were and whatever. But if they are unable to translate it to the social correct culture, we don't say politically correct anymore because that's evil. So I think we're going to see this group of people come out of the woodwork that we don't know, that are going to have different routines, that are going to be like this Rowan and Martin. That these guys were on the road for 10 years before the show. They traveled for 10 years doing this shtick.
Yeah.
Going back to what makes things great, obviously. But I'm going to tell you that you're a smart guy. You're historically, you know some things. When you watch this stuff, and the people, you got you got Johnny Carson, who's got the top show sneaking in to be on the show. You got John Wayne sneaking in to be on the show. You got the president of the United States, who the whole show's making fun of, on the show. There's something very powerful.
There.
So
that's a recommendation for the week, right there.
That is my recommendation of the week.
Okay.
You will laugh. I laugh out loud.
Yeah.
And they just barbecue every single. They do a scene where they're calling a protest, like a sporting event, and they're there, and they're police too, and they're scoring it, and it's just so crazy. But this Dick Martin plays the dumb guy. It is so brilliant because you can't pin anything on the dumb guy because he doesn't know. But what he says is so brilliant on the play.
Yeah.
So that's my that and the Croupier movie, the 1998 kind of independent film with Clive Owen that made him a star. Those two movies, I rewatched that a couple. Really, I watched Donovan, The Pryor, Rowan and Martin, Social Network, some Johnny Carson with Don Rickles. But Croupier with Clive Owen is one I've recommended it to you. Yeah. It's about a guy who wants to be a writer. So he's narrating the story with two different characters. And it is brilliant. Yeah. And as always, the British and Australian actors that are in this film, it's phenomenal. It has that gritty feel of Snatch. So not in some cartoonish characters in London that you're going to pick out that you'll like. Yeah. But Clive Owen is one of those movie star guys. And on a positive note, Julia Roberts said that she never worked with a more just genuine and incredible human being as Clive Owen.
That's great.
And so
because he had his big years of just in the as an A-lister, and then kind of just went away, and you don't know if it was for what reason. I've never looked into the reason. I don't know if it was, like Aaron Eckhart had difficult to work with.
Really?
Yeah. After The Dark Knight, he did a couple movies.
I love that movie with him and Julia Roberts, where he plays the biker neighbor.
And he talks about it.
Oscar.
If you look at articles, he talks about getting that label stick on, and he's more of, I think, a method actor, or likes to.
Okay.
Super serious.
He doesn't leave the character then.
Yeah, or he's super serious when he gets on set, so he thinks that probably rubbed people, the wrong way. But he knows it took him out of the business a little bit.
Really,
so he's kind of making his way back now. But yeah. So I'm not sure what happened to Clive Owen.
I've never heard anything but wonderful things, and I find him to be his voice. I love his voice, and
especially Children of Men. One of my favorite movies of his is Children of Men. I think his role of that. Recommendation. Well, one last thing I think for the Golden Globes. I watched the show. I would say I was in and out of it. Watching it here and there. I thought the show overall went okay. The way they did it was everybody was on Zoom. You had first responders in the audience. Everybody's all masked.
In case the actors died of cocaine. They wanted to make sure they're there.
Well, you had Joaquin Phoenix make an appearance, which I thought that was pretty interesting. I didn't think he was going to leave the house. And then all the presenters came out. They looked good. Everybody's all dressed up. On the Zoom calls, you had most of the people were dressed up. Some of the people were not. Everybody's at home. Some people just chose not to dress up. People were pointing out Jason Sudeikis for wearing a hoodie, and he was looking like he just woke up.
Or he just smoked a joint.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I read. No, I listen at 4 a.m. while you were sleeping.
Yeah,
I was reading the Washington Post every morning. I read the Washington Post and New York Times because they're up and running.
Yeah.
When I go to bed at 4:30, they've already put their print out. So
what did you see?
That's what they said. There was a bunch of Twitter wondering if he was stoned.
Oh, okay. I saw some people were like, you know, people like to complain. How come he got to dress in whatever he wanted, and you know, women had to feel the pressure of dressing up? I mean, like,
well, because I don't want to see him in a dress. Okay,
yeah.
I honestly don't. Now, if he shaves his chest, that's okay, but otherwise, no.
I think most people, 50% of people,
he's a pretty talented dude, man.
He's a funny guy. Yeah.
Well, no, he created this character. Have you seen the show? This Ted Lasso?
No, I haven't seen it.
Well, I mean,
is it the soccer one? Is it the soccer one or no?
I don't know what it is. I just know the name, and there was some buzz about his appearance on the show. A lot of TV and Golden Globes, I don't see a lot of the limited. I saw obviously the Queen's Gambit, different things, but I don't see. I lean toward the Oscars because, like, you are more serialized and encapsulated stories. Like,
you could just watch them. It's easier to keep track of too. I like too much movies. TV. Yeah.
So
the show.
I think the Oscar nominations will be coming out. I think on the 7th of March is when we'll have our list. Of the Golden Globes, as you watch, is there anything that you want to watch? Anything that's standing out for you? My two were those.
Probably the one that piqued my interest, maybe the one with Anthony Hopkins, the father.
Yeah, I don't know anything about.
I don't know anything about it either. That's all, and it looked good from what I saw. So that that piqued my interest, but other than that, not really. I felt like the ones we saw already, like Queen's Gambit, The Crown, Nomadland, I thought it was going to do really well, and it ended up doing well. But I think The Father I'm interested in. But the show overall, I thought they did a pretty good job. Because it was the first pandemic Golden Globes. We didn't have to do that last time. The way they did it, I thought it flowed really well. I thought it was, but like I told you, I texted you, I thought it was safe. Nothing, not one bit of it was controversial. I mean, it was
no Ricky Gervais.
Oh, not even. He's not. No, not even close. It was even Amy Poehler and Tina Fey, who can get a little edgy at times. I think they kind of dialed it back.
Well, I mean, not only there's a low representation of Polish people in the Hollywood foreign press, which they can't write, so I understand. But I'm offended because of that.
Yeah, I was just watching a show. I was like, the comedy wasn't necessarily that funny. It wasn't at all edgy. I think even the presenters I thought were safe. They got the most friendly Hollywood people they could get.
Where did they shoot it?
I think the Beverly Hotel. The Beverly Hills Hotel. Yeah. No, the Beverly Hills Hotel, and like the old,
the red one, the pink one.
No, okay. I don't know what the color it is. Maybe the Beverly Hilton Hotel. I don't know. The ballroom was nice. It was smaller, but it was nice. And but I thought the show was safe. I thought they didn't push the envelope not once. Even the pre-show presenters, I thought were just, as non-controversial as you could get. I thought the commercials were as safe, inclusive is a word, and non-controversial as you can get. I thought that just the whole overall show was very PG. When it's fun when it goes a little PG-13, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like you get a little, I don't know. I wanted a little bit of like, even like a presenter that threw in a funny, edgy joke or whatever. It's just, I was like, this isn't funny. It's not entertaining. Let me just get to the category already. You know what I mean? That was that type of thing. That was my take on the show itself. But overall, production-wise, I thought they did a good job.
Well, I guess there was a question about some technical problems where people were having their speeches were messed up.
Yeah, they didn't have their their microphone connected or whatever. But I think I didn't see too much of that.
Like it's like you got to plug it in, man.
Yeah.
Like
And I think
you
it was
would
the
think
first.
you would learn that in Grip 101.
The first presenter of the day, I think, the night. I think it was the actor from Black Messiah.
Yeah, Daniel Coletta.
Yeah,
I said his name wrong.
His microphone didn't work for
I
half
like
of his
that guy,
speech.
man. To be honest with you,
I like the guy too, and he's got a very.
I like him, and you know what?
He's got a very
Sicario,
thick
too.
accent. He's got a very thick accent.
Really?
Oh, it's a very British, very.
He's British, so that's why he's good.
British.
See,
but when he goes the American accent, I mean, you couldn't even tell.
no,
Clear.
that's
You
pretty
hear every
impressive.
word.
That okay? Now we know why. Okay,
Yeah.
that
There you
says
go.
it all.
Yeah, that says it all. Yeah.
Okay. He's a great actor because he's not from America.
Exactly. Now, as far as my recommendations for the week before we end the show, Patrice O'Neill's documentary, a comedian who I think people have, at least in the mainstream audience, if you weren't into comedy at all, weren't necessarily aware of, a big 6'7", I think it was 6'7", big dude out of Boston, came up to the Boston comedy scene. The documentary, he's associated with guys like, he came up with Bill Burr and all these other comedians, and that came up through that time. And one of my favorite comedians, his last and only big production special, which came out in 2010, end of 2010. He died in 2011. It's probably still one of my favorite specials to this day. I mean, it makes me laugh from start to finish.
Send me the link.
I'll send you the link.
I'll watch it. I'll watch it tonight.
I found them both on YouTube. The documentary is great. Goes through his career, his dealings with Hollywood, his fame, and his death. It's so well done.
Send me the stand-up.
I'll send you both.
I'll check. Yeah,
I'll send you
but
both.
when you put the subject header, put which one is the stand-up.
Yeah. If anybody doesn't know who Patrice O'Neill is, go on YouTube. All his specials on there. His special Elephant in the Room is still one of the best. Has inspired a lot of comedians in the New York and Boston area. And it's just one of those guys that just told it like it is. A very Richard Pryor-esque, where he didn't, no filter, honest, just smart, just a really good comic. So that I was diving into that. Went back to some oldies like The Patriot films and Snatch, which are some of my favorites. And another recommendation for you're a sports fan, a football fan. I just watched it last night because I like watching all of ESPN's 30 for 30s. And you know me, I don't really keep up with a lot of sports, but I like absorbing information. I like diving into worlds. I watch every single one, baseball, track, football, you name it. I watch them all. So this one I'm recommending is Al Davis versus the NFL.
Oh no, I heard about this. Yeah.
It just came out. It's on ESPN right now.
Came out last week, 2 weeks ago, something like that, right?
Yeah. It deals with Al Davis, his rise, and then the commissioner, Pete Rozelle.
Pete Rozelle.
Their relationship, their back and forth, and that
covered John Madden.
Yeah, John Madden's featured in here. I thought it was a really cool documentary, and they did something interesting. They did like these breakaway pieces to where they would have. Are you aware of God, what's the technology called? Have you seen those videos where they'll take an actor's face and they digitize it on somebody else's body?
Yeah, I just saw the deep fake.
There you go, deep fake.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
right.
So, 2
days ago or whatever.
Yeah, so they did a deep fake in this movie. So they talked about in the beginning. They have it's not them recreating, doing it for the heck of it. They're deep fake interpretations of what Al Davis and Pete Rozelle would have said if they were alive today on certain topics. So they would break away. It would almost be like they were interviewed during it was funny. They would do backstory videos and they'll cut to the deep fake, and then they'll kind of like throw in these comments, and it's almost like they were being interviewed, and they'll comment on what's going on, and then they'll cut back. And it was very, very interesting how they did it. And it didn't take away from the documentary. I thought it was really well done. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I didn't know that much about the Raider history. And then dives into that kind of stuff.
Had a guy, his name was Mike Garcia. I worked with him in Chicago. We call him Mike Garbage Cia. And he was a Raider fan. It kind of put a bad taste in my mouth back and working with him. But
you'll see.
I'm familiar with the iconic
and obviously those two
story
guys,
of this guy.
Those two guys with the AFL and the NFL and the merger and the whole drama or whatever during that time.
Is it a 1-part or 2-part series?
Just a 1-part, probably hour 20, hour 15. So I highly recommend it.
I have enjoyed many. The truth is, the one I was most excited about, the Bruce Lee one, to me seemed like to be almost.
I think we talked about it. No,
we did.
Did you see
a long time ago? Yeah, but it just wasn't. It should have been like 5-part series or something. It was weak.
It was weak. I didn't enjoy it. Me being a Bruce Lee fan, I'm sure you are too. I've seen.
I didn't learn nothing.
I've seen all his movies.
I learned more from watching the movie with Jim Carrey's wife.
I thought it exactly. Did you ever deep dive into that movie to see what was real and what was dramatized?
No.
He when he got injured in the fight scene, he got injured weightlifting, not in the fight. The way they portrayed it.
I saw his the dude was a massive bodybuilder. Yeah. I mean, not for size, but I've seen his written diary or pictures of the written diary of his workouts. The guy worked out like bodybuilding workouts.
Yeah, and honestly, he was. A lot of people like to say, "Oh, how would Bruce Lee do against Mike Tyson or this?" He wasn't really that type of person. I think you'd have to look at him more like a philosopher of like martial arts and fighting, because the guy.
Yeah, well, look who he came from.
Yeah, and
man.
Yeah, and he and his thoughts on fitness, on styles and diverging away from one type of form of fighting and taking from what works and what doesn't, and just it which we see kind of interpreted today in mixed martial arts is basically his philosophy of taking the best of each style and melding it into your own.
Well, I mean, that only makes sense.
Yeah.
To be great at MMA or whatever. But anyway, that documentary, but like the Michael Jordan, which was not a 30 for 30, but was on ESPN. But I do love the stories behind it. I love the Bad Boys, the Bears. So there's and even going back to some tragic stories too, basketball players, different things. But I find it really interesting because they have a lot of big time people that are shooting them and producing them. It's not
directing
just journals. It's also some big time Hollywood celebrities that are involved, and very interesting.
So I would recommend as far as 30 for 30s, Al Davis versus the NFL and the Ric Flair, the Nature Boy. I'm sorry.
And my shirt came from Tom Brady today.
Oh, really? Okay.
I got up at 4:30 in the morning and I couldn't log in. At 4:30 in the morning, the day after Super Bowl, I couldn't log into his website. And so I ordered a shirt on that day, and I'm getting it today. It's in the mailbox. I just saw it, but it's just 7 championships. So I'm very happy about that. Awesome. And other than that, no, man, everything is cool. And send me the link on the Ric Flair. And I will. In fact, I'm going to put a link up on our Instagram for the documentary, because I'm going to put his picture up. That's going to be our picture when we do the recap. And I like to laugh, man. I'm really looking forward. You know what? I never went to clubs.
Yeah.
But now, when it opens up, I want to go with you. I want to go to some of these clubs.
We'll go to comedy clubs. We'll go to.
I'm really interested.
We'll go to comedy clubs. We'll go to high school gymnasium pro wrestling. We'll do it. We'll like when everything's open up. You'll
I'll be interested to see it. Anyway,
have
listen,
fun.
man. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
All right. Take care.